they need to work. And from the EBBF perspective, the work needs to be perhaps reshaped to be more user-friendly, shall we say that? Diana Cartwright had an interesting, some of you were there today, had an interesting seminar this afternoon. I mean, really, she was just talking about stuff. That's the way she, there's too much stuff. You were there. We were talking about stuff. Now, if we're talking about fragmented justice, the fact that people need to earn money to earn a living, and they produce stuff, how does that create a just system? If we want to buy cheaper, we don't want to pay so much, we don't want to pay much, we go to China to have it, they need their money, that creates pollution. That seems a very complicated ball string for me.
It is a complicated ball of string. But the thing is, first you have to look at what is cheaper. I mean, this is a relative phrase, and it has to do with time, it has to do with place, it has to do with what you're selling. And it could be cheaper today, it could be cheaper in another context. The problem is the consumer needs to know a little bit more, not just a little, a lot more, about where the products come from, what they're made of, how they have an impact on both the environment and on their own lives. But the basic thing is a question of efficiency, I think. And when Diana was talking about stuff in the afternoon work group we had, we were talking about the symbolic value of commodities as well as the practical value and the environmental impact. And that makes a kind of an equation that you have to look at altogether. You have to look at the symbolic value of why you need something. I need a mobile phone to keep in contact with my old grandma who really can't get out of her house. It's not the phone that's the important thing, it's the symbolic value. So maybe I don't need 10 mobile phones, I don't need a new one every year, but I do need some way of communicating. So the same thing in terms of the practical aspect. And then to realize this up against the environmental impact that a product has. So we need help. We need labeling, we need information, but we also need a kind of attitude which says, maybe I don't need luxury. I need to follow Mahatma Gandhi's idea of fulfilling our basic needs, but maybe not all our greed.
Okay, you have a mobile phone?
Yep.
Did you notice it had a symbolic? Did you go into all that? And did you keep? Let me ask you this: do you use it to keep in touch with your old grandma?
Well, I would have had, I would have.
Okay.
Now,
what do you use that phone for, really?
I think I use it for a number of different reasons.
Okay.
Partly to share some of the things which I believe are important. I think communication is something which is important.
So that's a good value for you.
Well, I think it should be a value for all of us, actually, because it's important that if we know something that we can convey that message to different kind of forums. One may be the mobile phone. Now, I recognize that we are tried out rabbits because we don't really know the effect it has on us yet either, because we're the first generation we want to shoot it. But I think it's important to communicate that.
And did you use the kind of labeling criteria that Victoria is advocating? I mean, I don't even know if it exists. But if it did, it does? Okay.
Yeah, well...
Would you use it? Is that would be?
So the question may be if I'm a conscious consumerism or not.
I'm asking about you.
Yeah, so I think I'm not the most conscious consumer.
Right? We're all
Yeah, but okay, so now since we are all everything, I think it's important to sort of bring an issue to the table again. And that is something which I've listed in a couple of forums during today, some of the workshops, and that is we claim that we're such a diverse room, and I think we are really diverse from one perspective, and that is, of course, that there are men and women here, there are lots of different ages and nationalities, but looking from a different perspective, we're not so diverse, and that is from the value-based perspective. So many of us share the same kind of values, which makes it quite easy for us to communicate. So I've received the question many times today, where are you from? And I say, yeah, I'm from Sweden. But really, I think I'm from a global world, and we are in a global room now where we connect based on the values. So usually home for me is where people understand me, and in this room, people understand me, right? So that's home for me. The question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we create a bridge from this conscious room, let's say, to the rest of the world? Because that's really where we need to increase the consciousness.
That's a really good question. Steve's going to answer that for us.
think the bridge is built in several different ways. It's at times a bridge of ideas, and at other times it's a bridge of relationships and experiences between people. And I think that's really pivotal, because to only a limited degree, particularly when you're dealing with issues of differing values, can you really reach a person through pure intellectual argument or exchange. I think that really you start touching people on the level of values through relationships and through personal experience. And that's really key.
I mean, that's quite an interesting point, because that's actually how you came to EBBF for this. Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little about that story?
Well, I came last year because I wanted to change my company and make it social responsible. And I didn't really know much about it, so I Googled, and one of the top links was EBBF, so I came and I sat and listened. And now I'm starting a new company based on using values as the core of the business model. And I think maybe, and I spoke earlier about, how when I go pitch in front of venture capitalists, when I start talking about values and sustainability, they all kind of get nervous. And I think one of the ways that we can make a change is to set by action and set by example. Like the presentation we saw earlier of someone who,
John Patterson?
Yeah. That's an
He was going to be on the panel, but he had to go. I think he was frightened.
That should be shown in the business schools around the world. Maybe I should pre-start my presentation with his. Actually, I think it's much more convincing way. And I think if we show to, let's say, people who many times it's people who've never heard of these ideas. I'm based in Italy, and these concepts are wrong, but people maybe they don't even know about it. So I think it's about communicating these concepts and then showing them viable models that actually work based on these concepts and NGOs and businesses.
Rebecca, you live in Bosnia?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say that there's probably only 2 people here from Bosnia today? Yeah. You and the other half of you, right? Right. And is it the case that communicating these ideas, I mean, it's been suggested that we are all the same here in the sense that we all share a value base, and I think that's probably true. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have something in common and want to come and support it or learn more about it. How hard is it to get those values across in the sector in which you were in Bosnia?
Well, it's very difficult because there's the one thing that there is common to all people of Bosnia is no hope. And when you talk about having ethics in the workplace or having business ethics, they think it's impossible because it's never been around. So there isn't, I mean, the way the country is, you were saying about labeling, I cannot buy anything that is labeled. I have no idea where it comes from. I have no idea how it's built. I cannot recycle anything. So there's no place where I can bring my batteries. I mean, the whole structure of the country is not conducive to this kind of things. I found a couple of business people who do business with foreign countries, and these ones realize that somehow trustworthiness is a good quality when you want to do business with foreign.
Okay, good. I'm going to